Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome back to the Mixing in a Home Music Studio course. In this video, we're going to talk about volume and panning. So firstly, if you are new to my channel and new to my videos and you like what you see, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. So volume and panning, right? This sounds very basic, and it is, right? But that's the point of this, right? This course, I'm hoping, is going to teach you or explain every little thing, even if it seems as simple as volume and panning. We're going to cover all the items, right? Because some of you out there have mixed before. Some of you may never have mixed one little inch, one little tiny bit. And, you know, having some of these very basic ideas explained to you or shown to you is critical to mixing, right? And volume and panning is probably the most underrated, but the most needed concept in mixing. You know, you could take away every other technique in mixing and just do volume and panning and get a great sounding song. Without volume and panning, you've got no chance. So in a previous video, we talked about gain staging, okay? So when I'm talking about volume here, so let's concentrate on volume. I'm not talking about gain staging, right? So let's assume we've already done our gain staging and that sort of stuff. Now what we're doing is, so, you know, gain staging was about getting our levels right through our equipment, through our tracks, that sort of stuff. Now what we're gonna do is we wanna adjust the actual faders on our tracks. And what we're doing is basically balancing out all the different tracks to create a coherent sounding song. You know, turning up the snare, turning down the kick, you know, whatever it is, turning up the guitars, turning up the vocals, turning them down, all those sort of things, right? And it's as simple as that, you know, it's just as simple as, you know, grabbing the fader and setting a volume and setting it appropriately for the, you know, entire song. This is excluding doing any sort of automation or anything like that further into the course. We're just balancing all the tracks out so they make sense, they sound good. One instrument doesn't sound too loud compared to the others. One instrument doesn't sound too soft compared to the others. That's as simple as it gets. Now, what levels you should have each instrument in is basically impossible for me to tell. It depends on every song. It depends on how loud each instrument was recorded. It depends on what instruments are in your song. It depends on the location in the stereo field they are, which we'll come into with panning. You know, it depends on what its purpose is. Sometimes you will deliberately turn the volume down on an instrument because you want it to sound like it's, you know, in the back. It's not present at the front. You'll have some vocals that'll be like the main vocal, which will be quite loud because it needs to be in your face. You'll have other vocals that are, say, backing tracks, ad-libs, that sort of stuff. You'll drop the volume down. They'll sit back. They're not meant to be the main element. These are the concepts that you're going to use with a volume. So now when it comes to panning, again, we've got lots of different options here. We've got techniques like LCR mixing, which is basically, you know, some people like to use this to keep things simple. And LCR stands for left, center, right. Okay, they basically limit themselves to those three positions, left, center, or right. And this is if they're mono tracks, right? So, you know, you might have your vocals down the center, you might have some guitar on the left and another guitar on the right, right? So that could be as simple as it is, and you do that through all of your instruments. So, you know, using panning, you're basically determining in the stereo field, you know, how wide the stereo field is and where each element will sit. Now, if you don't follow the principles of LCR panning, you know, which I don't do, I don't follow that, I will use every part of the stereo field. So you don't have to lock yourself to only fully left, fully right, or center. You can go halfway. You can go halfway between fully right and center. You can go halfway between fully left and center. You can go 3/4, a quarter. You can go anywhere you want, right? And you can space them all out. You know, I'll quite often have, say, let's say a drum kit here. I'll say kick is down the center, snare center. I might have the hi-hat off 30%, say to the left. I might have my overheads 100% left, 100% right. I may have a tom 70% left, 70% right. Another one, say 30 right. If you have a fourth tom, another one 30 left, you know, whatever you want. So when they do a tom fill, you get that do-do-do-do-do-do across the stereo field, right? And this is all depending on what you want to do. But not only does it fill the stereo space, give some texture and that, especially if you're listening on headphones, and give some interest to the song because, you know, you're hearing things here and there. It also allows the instruments to shine through a little bit better as well. So when you're listening stereo, it's a lot easier to hear an instrument if it's placed not on top of each other, right? So if everything's on top of each other down the center, everything, well, that's basically mono, right? That's a mono mix. If everything was totally to the width, then they're all, you know, it's a stereo mix, but they're all in the same spot. But if you put bits and pieces in different locations, they stand out more, they sound like they're in different places, and you can hear them clearer. Now, depending on the type of music, I may have a concept about how I want to do it. You know, if it's a rock band or something like that, then I may have an image in my head of listening and looking at them on a stage. And I'll position them in the mix based on that, you know, so I just imagine where they're standing on the stage, where I might be hearing their instrument coming from, and that's where I'll place them in the stereo field. Electronic instruments, rap, all that sort of stuff, well, you may have totally different concepts because you don't have those images in your head, so you can do anything you like. Now again, there's technically really no rules about where you pan instruments. You know, there is some common things that most people do, like, you know, kick drum is in the center, snares in the center, bass guitar's in the center, your lead vocal will be in the center. But from then on, you know, is there really any rules? Not really. You know, as I said, you might have a hi-hat off slightly to the side. Depending on your mix, you may have your drums overheads 100% left, 100% right to create a really wide sounding drum kit. But then I've done songs before where I want the drum kit to sound more realistic, more like I was listening to a band in a concert. And I may narrow the field. I may bring the overheads into 70% or 50% even, so the drum kit's not all the way out here. It's contained more into the center, but still stereo. Right, so there's not necessarily any rules, but there's, you know, a few elements that you, as I said, the ones I gave you, that would generally go there. All right, so let's get into Cubase and let's have a look at some techniques and, you know, some of these features and how we actually do the volume and panning. Okay, so we are in Cubase now, and we've got a project that's already sort of set up, pretty much mixed, but just using this to show you an example. Now, this is a bit of a look. It's a simple concept, and but we want to cover all the basics, but this is extremely basic. All right, so we've talked about the fact that volume refers to these faders here. All right, so we're not talking about the loudness of the audio track itself, so we're not talking about the loudness of the audio track itself, like it's coming in raw or anything like that. That's already been established. That's been set up, say, with our gain staging. So what we're talking about now is we're just getting in and we're doing the mixing. All right, so we've got a song here, and let's just say we solo the drums here, right? And volume is as simple as getting the balance of these right. Okay, so it's tweaking these faders to get our individual parts of the drums or whatever instrument right in the mix. So in the case of here, you know, we're going to pull up or down each individual one, so like the kick, to get it to the level we want. You know, you might say, oh, I want the snare louder. All right, well, let's push it up. Yeah, we want more snare, whatever. Or No, the snare's a bit loud. Let's bring it down. Let's get some more cymbals in our hi-hats. Okay, you know, tom run, you might need to balance out the individual toms so they all sound nice and balanced between each other. Again, we got hats. We could, if the hats were playing, which they're not right now, they could be doing it. Or we've got the room, you know. I want a lot more room in this. Or a lot less. I want it really dry. So we can turn it all the way down to the bottom so that it sort of shows this infinity symbol, which is all the way off, you know, nothing coming through at all. Or, you know, we've got, well, if I right click, we got 0. That's our starting point. So that's basically should be full volume, but we can actually go louder. I don't usually recommend going louder, but sometimes you may need to if you've got a very quiet instrument. But I would suggest that maybe you should do something in gain staging first if you've got a very low instrument, just so you can use the fader a bit better. But that's basically what we're talking about with volume. It's just setting these faders to some sort of level to get each of the individual tracks at a nice volume, respective to each other, so that it sounds like a cohesive bunch of instruments to create a song. And that's pretty much as simple as it is. So in regards to Cubase here, we have a different view depending on the type of track. So when we have a mono track, we have just a standard panner here, and it defaults to center. And we can move it all the way over to the left, all the way over to the right, or anywhere in between. So this is where I talk about potentially panning things part way in, or all the way, or even to the center. And you can get a little tricky and just do little tiny moves off center, things like that, especially if you've got harmonies, or you've got dual vocalists, or you've got a vocalist that does doubles. You might just pan a little bit off to the left or right on one of the tracks. Now, our other control here is where we have a stereo track. So a stereo track obviously defaults to having everything left and right fully. So that's, this instrument is covering the entire stereo spectrum left and right. But we don't have to leave it there. We can actually bring it in, and we can do it independent from each side. So I like to say different instruments. I might have some that are fully left and right. I might have other ones that I pan in a little bit, so they're not in the center, but they're not fully right out to the wide left and rights either. They're just a bit narrower. And we can do that quite simply in Cubase by doing this. If I hold down the Alt key, I can move one side at a time. If I don't hold anything, I can actually move the bar itself around and anything else like that. Now, we're not even limited to that point. We can do anything we like. We can put it all the way over to the right side here, and we can even move both controls right to the right. And in theory, what we've done is we've now made that a mono source. So we've turned a stereo track now into mono. We could go the other way. We could go fully left. We could go halfway and still convert it to mono by putting both controls about the same position. And now we still have a mono track, but we've panned it left to the 50, or we can even bring it into center. So an easy way for me to do that is to actually double click on it, and then I can actually type C in on both controls, and now we have it looking like our mono track. So this would actually be mono down the center. Now, if I control click, we go back to the default setting, which is fully left and right. So that's panning quite simply in Cubase. We can do that at a track level. We can do that at a bus level, you know, so we might feed them into a bus. We can do that on our output, our main output, and our
output totally to bounce out. We can control there as well.
So there you go, that is volume and panning. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Did it make sense? Did I leave anything out? Do you have any questions about it? Feel free to put them in the comments. Love to help wherever I can, as much as I can, so you can get the most out of this course. As I keep saying, sometimes I do forget to talk about items, and there's a lot to cover in mixing, and quite a lot of the time it's very hard to cover everything. So if there is something that you want to get further clarification on, or more details or better explanation, please do feel free to ask the questions or put a comment in the comments. I do read them all, and I'll answer as many of them as I possibly can as quickly as I can, so that you can get all the help you need. If you did like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.